Software developers of Reddit, what Easter eggs have you made that people never found? I developed an educational children game about birds some years ago. In this game you could play following the life of a bird. In the main menu though, there was a hidden button which allowed you to play as a flying penguin instead. I once created a project that I called the Field Agriculture Revenue Tester that estimated the revenue gained from planting certain crops in fields. It saved everything as .fart files and nobody noticed. I also wrote a website that included blueprints to the library and you could search the Dewey Decimal System and it would highlight the shelves the books were located on, and certain resources through the search. As I worked the late shift I got to know the cleaner and we used to have a right laugh. Her name was Jan. I added a small function in the site so that on any weekday, which was when the place was open, at 5 PM, which is when Jan would clean the library, if you were looking at the page you had a 1 in 8 chance of her actually coming in on the blueprint as a little pixelated character and cleaning the library. As she passed through the gates they would rotate and the vacuum would sway behind her. There was a random set of points created at entry that she would sequence cleaning through, including up the aisles of books and sometimes into the extra study rooms, where the doors would also open if she entered them. Once finished she would head for the entrance and then leave. If you clicked on her she would leave by the quickest route. I also allowed people to run it, rather than waiting and hoping, by typing and vac Jan into the search engine. The single returned link would take them to the blueprint and start the process of her coming in and cleaning. She thought it was wonderful. How to convert .fart files to .pdf. The software gives you an error when you enter a value greater than 64 in one of the fields, but when you enter 69, it prints he69 to the debug log. Debug logs are great because nobody will ever see them. I always made mine seem like it has to rate as when it reaches an error. Freaking cocksucker, invalid input in pass function, crap frick. So I used to write hair salon point of sale software, at some point like 4 or 5 V's. VVVVV, got into the application in a line near the top of the screen. I could never find those stupid V's in the code. Searching for the string never resulted in anything, so they had to be generated one at a time. Heck, I couldn't even find something outputting 1V, so it had to be some variable somewhere that I could never find. I left the company having never found the rogue V's. Many years ago I made a web app for a client that created 401k documents using a form. The hero image on the homepage was an illustration of a person and his accountant shaking hands. I overlaid the image with an animated GIF of their eyes blinking, but it only happened one time, and only after 200 seconds. I wanted someone to have the site loaded up, and out of the corner of their eye see this image change briefly, and think they were going insane. I have also left a lot of swear words in JavaScript comments, some of which made it into production. But that's not so much an Easter egg as unprofessional behavior on my part. You wouldn't actually see it, but lots of really great comments. Oh god, I know this is coded horribly. If you're reading this, I'm so sorry. I was really pressed for time. I won't get to this, but I need to fix it anyway. Tried like heck to make other method work, but it's a B. This is the stopgap workaround I found. Even Stack Overflow couldn't help me, you know, the usual. My buddy showed me his code for a school project once, as I was interested in the course. He had a comment that said, "Do not delete this comment. It holds the world on its shoulders." Apparently the program refused to work without a comment in that slot. I'm not a software developer, but I do write a fair amount of code for my job. I wrote a simulation program that is used by about 10 other people as the office. It has a setting that is called Happy Sim. It changes. Estimated time left, 35 seconds. 2. Estimated time left, 35 seconds. It's been mostly unnoticed. I also put a bunch of GIFs in the comments that haven't been noticed either. I created a site for a college library and had a downloads page where you could download and print PDF documents that would emulate graph paper and lined paper. Just to see if anyone would notice, I also created a PDF for plain paper that you could send to the printer. Nothing too crazy, but a few years back while developing for a game company we decided to play an April Fool's joke. It was a bluff Facebook game where you had your avatar and could fight other people. For that day, if you battled and lost, You got the victor's avatar for the rest of the day or until a different person beat you. It was a lot of fun watching our forums try to figure out what was going on and to watch the top fighters slowly replicate themselves Agent Smith style. At the end of the day we released a leaderboard with stats like most viral avatar, longest session with avatar, won by N00B who no one attacked at all, most swaps, etc etc. I made an accidental Easter egg that allowed me to solve a case of code theft. I used to develop a talker, a sort of chat system that looks like a text adventure. Due to a bug I introduced, in some specific circumstances an error message would appear without the end of line marker, leading to a weird looking message. I had my own talker on a Linux machine, with quite a lot of users. After a few months, a competitor talker appeared. I logged in and played with it, and due to a series of circumstances I fell into the Easter egg. At that point I realized they stole my code. How they did it is that they replaced the SSH client on the Linux machine I was using to log in with a fake one, got my password, logged into my account with it, and stole the code. I was part of a student team that had to write a video game. We were given a very basic engine to work with and had to do everything else from there. One of the members of our group, let's call him Frank, was really big on ideas but never got around to actually contributing any code, which as you might imagine, made our lives much harder. Near the end of the project, we began work on a high score system that would record the score at the end of the game, add it to the list, sort the list, etc. We actually had it set up so that it would record the Windows username of the player in the high score table as well. Long story short, anyone who plays the game with a Windows username of Frank gets a high score of 0 because I'm a vindictive butthole. In my intro to programming class, we had to make a game karaoke where you guessed 7 numbers 180 out of a computer generated 20 numbers 180. If you typed your name as dollar bills you get a bonus $1 million. If you names yourself big bucks the computer always generated 120 as its numbers. My friends were amazed to see me winning every time lol. In all my web scripts users are referred to as chickens. All logs and error messages refer to users as chickens. When a user registers there is a brief message showing, chicken has successfully registered. Same for logging in before redirecting to the next page. For our web app demo at work, I named all of the fake users after members of the Wu-Tang Clan. Robert Diggs, RZA, Elgin Turner, Master Killer, Russell Jones, Old Dirty Bastard. No one has any idea but me. Ah yes, the dummy data for our business app is filled with names from comic books. Tony Stark is one of our biggest clients. I wrote some of the software inside DVD players, which sold over 1 million units in 1998. My Easter egg was that if you pulled up the on-screen display and typed a certain sequence on the remote control, all of the bitmapped buttons turned into pictures of the software developers. The hardest part was hiding it inside the source code in a way that the other developers couldn't find it and tattle on me. I put an Easter egg in all my enterprise web apps where you can escape the string on user inputs and customize the SQL query. Pretty nifty if I do say so myself. I put in an error when people select a deadline of a task prior to the current date that says are you able to time travel? Didn't think so. The fact that the deadline auto-populates is probably why no one has seen it. They need to actively change the deadline. I've put in random alerts for specific people to yank their chain once in a while. A simple one I did the other day was putting a funny picture in the user's startup folder. I try to put economy code in every website or application that I create. The most widely viewed site I worked on was some mini games for a Fanta graphic novel called Playful, saving the source. The code would do something different in every game. On pongcombat.com, I added a blue screen of death to the 404 page and a pretend Mac System 1 to the directory listing screens. My game has invisible walls stretching around the map. However, there is a gap in the wall allowing the player to find a ton of Easter eggs. I built a dashboard for a factory monitoring system that was shown on about a dozen different PCs around the plant. I put in a check to include happy birthdays is on one of my colleagues' birthday, because it was going live a couple weeks before his birthday. His birthday ended up falling on the weekend because I'm an idiot and no one saw it. and I left that job long before the next year came around. I heard many years later that not only had they all seen the message eventually, but the new IT guy lost the source code, so it had to stay that way. It probably ran for 15 years before the corporation went bankrupt. What if we took a picture deep into space with the Hubble telescope and found a sign floating in space that says "Thank you for playing," like an Easter egg, and this is all just a game? I have a customer that forgets to populate a column in their data and messes up the parse at least once a month. I've set the column AR blank error message to increase the font size by 1 every time they do this. We started at 8 points font. They're up to 22. No one has said a word. This is brilliant. Remember those kiosks where you could walk up to them and make business cards and they'd print out right there? A friend of mine wrote the software, and if you walk up to the machine and type "Chad free," you could make 100% free cards unlimited. Haven't seen Chad in 15 years. Cheers, dude. Chad sounds like one chill dude. For my group project in university, I worked with a team that didn't do anything. When I was developing the login, if the username was equal to my name, it would alert I want this group to be at my funeral and lower my coffin, so they can let me down one last time. Completely forgot about it until we had to present it to the class. Bwahaha. What were their reactions? One of my VB scripts calls a Windows API. Forgot which one. To read. Aperture Science. We do what we must, because we can. For the good of all of us. Except the ones who are dead. From Portal in the female text-to-speech voice if the script is run on a Friday around lunchtime. 11:13 if I recall correctly. Either no one's had their speakers on or no one's noticed. Another says error 34. Unable to connect to Battle.net. No one ever fricking reads script output. My senior project, we made a crappy tactical JRPG. One of the items was a fish that did crap damage. No one used it. Anyone that's played TF2 knows that that fish crits like a mofo, and so did ours. When that thing crit, and it had like a 3x chance to, it was basically a OHKO. It was a pretty balanced weapon TBH. Sad no one used it. Guess that's what happens when you make a crappy game and only have a dozen playtesters. PS. You can tell me all you want that the TF2 fish doesn't have a higher crit chance and use fancy words like confirmation bias, but I'm going to ignore you and slap a man with my critical fish. I tend not to hide my Easter eggs. I like sharing them with everyone. Unfortunately, my boss refers to them as bugs. I have a great story, not about me, but about a former co-worker of mine. We worked for a company that subcontracted for the state government. He was asked to create a Google map that showed the addresses of sex offenders. When you clicked on the pin a tooltip with a mugshot of the offender, the category of offense, and their address would pop up. My co-worker was getting creeped the heck out by the mugshots and decided to sanitize them while he was developing the app. He made it so that if you set a particular URL parameter, then all the mugshots were replaced by pictures of Zap Brannigan. He forgot to take it out before going live with it, but decided to leave it in. I have a game map on the App Store that allows you to pop up a Game Boy emulator by going to a certain marker then tapping the screenshot 3 times. I'm not surprised no one has found it. I'm more surprised that Apple still hasn't found it. Please tell me what it is. Since GBA 4 iOS got destroyed, I have nothing to do when I'm stuck in public. My friend started unlocking and looking through the code of old Warcraft 3 maps. We found new versions of some maps all the time and had a feeling that some almost had hacks embedded. We were not wrong. In most, the hacks were simple things like type out the secret code and it brings up menus or whatever. Some though had restrictions built in, so you had to have a specific name for the cheat codes to work, but not a problem. He also found a code in an old BBS game called Legend of the Red Dragon. Some dev had put a code Yakawakadat in a specific room that when typed, gave you like 10 KSTR or something crazy. He found a live game that included that add-in and we proceeded to ruin the game of those poor people. Between the two of us, we found and exploited another few loopholes that allowed us to kill the dragon, level back up to max and be ready to kill it again as soon as the time reset. We were selling our dumb horses for negative money and letting the system think we had crossed the 2.4 billion bug, so it kindly reset our money to maximum. We also broke the money system by buying tens of thousands of children from the orphanage each, so we became immortal in fights. He reminds me on the Duke Nukem maps that my cousin and me used to make. We always had some secret room where all the weapons were and some levers to nag the other players with explosions, earthquakes or a ceiling coming down. We always said those were random happenings in the map. I added an Easter egg to remove the ads from my app. It started off as a test feature for me, but I just decided to leave it in and flag it to see if anybody ever found it. Nobody has found it yet, but I do occasionally inform people about it so they can turn ads off if they are nice. I made a low resolution version of Flappy Bird last year that got a decent amount of publicity around the world for being written for Apple II. No one seems to have looked at the code on GitHub. If you press P to pause the game, then hit T, the game plays in text mode. It's still playable, but tough. Nothing that exciting though. Not really an Easter egg, but in every project I've worked on, there is an error message for some obscure possibility, tucked away quietly, that one day will have its day to shine. That error message says nothing other than, Clode Litter. For university or work I'll always write jokes in my comments. My hope is that anyone lecturer that's marking my code will ease up and maybe give me a better grade. For indie development I'll write jokes for anyone else that's reading my code. For all my coursework, I would usually write, I have no idea how the frick I wrote this. I may have been drunk during this part, so enjoy a nice YouTube video. Link. I'd never thought anyone read it until one day a professor emailed me that she liked the video. Okay, here's a real one. I worked for Dynamix in the 90s. In 1996 I was a designer on Earthsiege 2, a mech fighting game. Part of my job was designing and coding missions. When you finished a mission, you got a debriefing, and depending on mission success and the amount of damage you take, you got a comment from your company. Well, I had some placeholder text in one of the missions. If you succeeded but had maximum damage, that read, please report for your spanking, Sergeant Moskowitz. Well, about a month after we released the game, I realized that I had left that text in the game. I never mentioned to anyone but a few friends, and never heard anything about it later. It's still out there, I'm sure. When I had a computer science class in high school, I had a friend named Cheese. When he wasn't there, I logged into his account, guessed his PW was Cheese, and inserted some code into his program he was working on for class. It was some C++ poker game or something. If you type cheese in the program, it would spam cheese in a loop until the program crashed. We told him about it before he was going to turn it in though. First world anarchist. I wrote a CRM for a marketing company I used to work for. After finding out that a colleague of ours hadn't been laid in over a year, he knew the specific date. I added in a little counter in the figures page which calculated, in years, months, days, and hours, how long it's been. Nobody noticed it for ages. Eventually I took it down. I wrote a user panel for the company I work for. It gives all the staff a little window in the bottom right hand corner on login with various site related tools. Also written by me, yay. There's an image at the top of said window, and when someone clicks on the image unbeknownst to them, it logs their username and the time it was clicked on one of our servers. A few years ago I had to build a website for a golf course. A photographer sent us over some high-res images to use for a slideshow header that I would need to crop and upload. In the process of cropping the photos I thought it'd be really funny to hide monsters in the background, behind trees, in bunkers, etc. Anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks and the golf course asked for a copy of their images and I sent them the ones I edited by accident. So lo and behold, not long after that I get sent through a brochure with the images in that I edited. They are no longer a client of mine, but as far as I recall they never knew about what I did. I made a proxy for an online game once that added a load of cool features. It was mildly popular. If you went into the about screen and pressed a particular sequence of keys, you'd see a picture of me wearing a Sailor Moon cosplay costume. I had some fun with RPG Maker when I was younger and made you examine a pot 50 times to get a crappy piece of equipment. I haven't found the game since. I once put Snake in the About screen of the package management app in our desktop management suite. It was activated by Control-Shift clicking the app icon. I never heard anyone mention it. On the other hand, I wouldn't expect software package builders to spend a lot of time looking for Easter eggs : I'm seriously considering adding some app-breaking bugs, like things that fail after X amount of tries on purpose, with a very low amount of X. Hell, just to prove to the powers that be in my company that our software test engineer is just horrible at his job and doesn't know how to test crap. LOL. My stupid QA mind says, when you do that, make sure it persists between launches so he'll catch it. He might only be testing with clean installs or killing the app between runs. Serious note, finding good QA is hard. We have an internal web application we use. We have the Konami code in it. If you do it right, a raptor pops up on the screen and runs across it while screaming, D. I usually put something different in every piece of software I write. One of the more recent ones was for a single page website. There was a form field, and if you type a certain keyword into that field it would make the image of my boss dance around on the screen. Serious company website. Enter the Konami code 3 times. Go to the imprint and click on every letter in the logo. It will redirect you to another version styled like the first websites with GIFs and comics on. There's a single pixel in one of the web applications I worked on for work that will play a GIF of Kermit the Frog flailing when you click on it. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.